Welcome to Voices of the Case. In this episode, we want to tell you the story of Natalia Grace, the child who might not be a child.
It's a case that really pulls you in, full of twists.
Definitely. So Natalia Grace, born in Ukraine reportedly September 4th, 2003. Though that date itself becomes a major point of contention.
Right. She arrives in the U.S., adopted in 2010 by Michael and Christine Barnett. Seems straightforward enough at first.
But then things take a really dark turn. The Barnetts, her adoptive parents, make the shocking claim that Natalia isn't a child at all, but an adult.
An adult posing as a child. It sounds like something out of a movie.
Exactly. And this claim leads to legal battles, court decisions, and eventually her abandonment. It's quite disturbing.
And the information we have is it's all over the place. You've got legal changes to her birth year, actual DNA tests suggesting something else entirely, and completely different stories about her behavior.
It's a puzzle. And, the media has absolutely run with this. Documentaries, TV series, everyone's trying to figure out what really happened.
Understandably so. It taps into some deep anxieties, I think.
Okay, so let's start trying to piece this together. Where does Natalia's story begin, according to the records?
Well, the official story starts in Nikolaev, Ukraine. Her biological mother is identified as Anna Volodymyrovna,
And the birth date listed there.
September 4th, 2003. After birth, she apparently spent some time in a Ukrainian orphanage.
And there's a significant medical aspect too, right?
Yes, very significant. Natalia was diagnosed with spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita. It's a rare form of dwarfism affecting bone growth.
Which results in short stature, skeletal issues. This becomes relevant later with the age claims.
Precisely. So she comes to the U.S. Interestingly, the Barnetts weren't her first placement. There were some temporary adoptions before they finalized hers in the spring of 2010.
And she becomes Natalia Grace Barnett. So a young girl, medical condition, new country, new family. Seems like a fresh start.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But that stability, or the appearance of it, didn't last long at all.
No, it really didn't. Because just 2 years later, in 2012, things take a drastic, almost unbelievable legal turn.
Yeah, this is where it gets truly bizarre. The Barnetts go to court, a Marion County court, and petition to legally change Natalia's birth year.
Not just adjust it slightly, they want it changed from 2003.
All the way back to 1989.
Making her legally 22 years old. She was, 8 or 9 at the time?
According to her original birth certificate, yes. Suddenly, legally, she's an adult. Think about what that means.
It strips away all the protections of a minor. It fundamentally changes her legal identity.
And perhaps paves the way for what they did next.
Which was?
In July 2013, about a year after the age change, they moved Natalia into an apartment by herself, first in Westfield, Indiana, then another one in Lafayette.
By herself. As a legally 23-year-old, but potentially biologically much younger.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
And then the Barnetts move, they pack up their biological kids and head to Canada.
Leaving Natalia behind, alone in the Lafayette apartment.
It's quite shocking when you lay it out like that.
Yeah.
Just abandoned.
So what happens to her then? She's just left there.
Thankfully, no, not indefinitely. She was found, apparently struggling, by Bishop Antoine and Cynthia Mans. They took her in.
Good people stepping up.
Yeah.
Did the authorities get involved regarding the abandonment?
Yes. The Barnetts were eventually charged with neglect of a dependent. It became a whole legal case.
Did the charges stick?
Michael Barnett went to trial and was actually acquitted. Christine's charges were later dropped too, I believe. But the whole situation, the age change, the move, the abandonment, it raises so many questions about their motives.
Absolutely. And the investigation for that neglect case turned up some pretty compelling counter evidence, didn't it?
It certainly complicated the Barnetts' narrative. Prosecutors managed to track down Natalia's biological mother, Anna Gava, back in Ukraine.
Anna Gava, born when?
April 20th, 1979. And DNA tests confirmed definitively she was Natalia's mother.
Okay, so let's do the math here. If Natalia was born in 1989, as the court ruled,
And Anna Gava would have been just 10 years old when she gave birth?
which is highly improbable, bordering on impossible.
Exactly. It's a major biological inconsistency with the legally established timeline. Plus, investigators also found Ukrainian birth records, hospital records.
All supporting the original 2003 birth date.
Correct. So you have the official Ukrainian documents and the biological mother's age, all pointing to 2003, directly contradicting the 1989 date the Barnetts legally secured.
But there was a complication in using this evidence in the neglect case, wasn't there? Something about her age.
Right. This is a crucial, kind of frustrating legal point. Reportedly, the prosecution was barred from presenting evidence that Natalia was actually a minor when she was abandoned.
Why? Because the court had already legally declared her an adult.
That seems to be the issue. The neglect case had to be argued based on her being a dependent adult with a disability, not a neglected child, because her legal age was already set at 22, 23.
So the core issue of whether she was truly a child might not have been fully argued in court due to that prior ruling.
It appears that way. The focus shifted to disability rather than age.
Okay, let's talk about the why. Why would the Barnetts do this? What were their claims about Natalia? And what about the orphan movie connection?
Cynthia Mance, the woman who took Natalia in, voiced a strong suspicion about that. She felt Christine Barnett might have been influenced by that 2009 horror movie, Orphan.
The one where the adopted girl turns out to be a dangerous adult woman?
Precisely. Mance apparently saw parallels between the film's plot and the things the Barnetts started saying about Natalia.
And what were they saying?
The Barnetts alleged Natalia was lying about her age from the start, that she was actually an adult sociopath. They made some really disturbing claims about her threatening them, even mentioning her appearing with a knife, really painting her as dangerous.
But the Mance family who lived with her after the abandonment, they saw something different.
Completely different. They stated very clearly that Natalia showed absolutely no signs of being sociopathic or dangerous while she was living with them. None of that behavior the Barnetts described.
So two totally opposing accounts of the same person. One from the adoptive parents who abandoned her, one from the family who took her in.
It makes it incredibly difficult to know who or what to believe. It just deepens the mystery.
No wonder the media latched onto this story. It's got all the elements.
Oh, absolutely. Natalia even went on Dr. Phil back in 2019 to tell her side.
And then the Investigation Discovery series, The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, that really brought it to a wider audience.
It did. They even did a follow-up season, Natalia Speaks, giving her more platform.
And it's not stopping there, is it? There's more media planned.
Seems like it. There's talk of a Hulu series, tentatively called Untitled Orphan Project, and even a Disney Plus miniseries planned for 2025 called Good American Family.
Wow. It shows just how much this case has gripped people. This idea of, who do you believe? What is the truth behind the facade?
It really resonates or disturbs on a fundamental level.
And just when you think things couldn't get more complicated, there was a recent development with DNA testing, right?
Yes. In August 2023, a company called True Diagnostic performed a DNA analysis aimed at estimating biological age.
And what did that test suggest?
It estimated Natalia's age to be around 22 years old at the time of the test, in 2023.
Okay, so if she was 22 in 2023, let's work backwards. That would put her birth year-round.
Around 2001, give or take, which would mean back in 2013 when she was abandoned.
She would have been about 11 or 12 years old.
Exactly. Much closer to her original documents in the biological mother's timeline than the 1989 date.
So this recent DNA test seems to support the idea she was indeed a child when left alone.
It certainly leans that way. Now, DNA age estimation isn't perfectly precise. It gives a range, but it's another piece of evidence that contradicts the Barnett's claims and the 2012 court ruling.
It really throws that 1989 birth year into even more serious doubt.
It does. It adds significant weight to the narrative that Natalia was a minor child when these events unfolded.
So piecing it all together, we have this initial adoption, the rare medical condition, the sudden, drastic legal age change, the abandonment.
Then the conflicting stories. The Barnett's claims of a dangerous adult versus the man's experience of a vulnerable girl.
Layered on top of that, the biological mother's age, the Ukrainian records, all pointing one way.
And the legal ruling, at least initially, pointing another. And now, this DNA age estimation adding more fuel to the fire.
It's a truly bewildering case. The core question remains, was Natalia Grace a child victim manipulated by her adoptive parents, or was there something more complex and perhaps sinister going on, as the Barnetts claimed?
The evidence, especially the biological impossibility of the 1989 birth year and the recent DNA test, certainly seems to lean strongly towards her being a child. But the Barnett's motivations, the full story of what happened within that house, much of it is still shrouded in claim and counterclaim.
A chilling ambiguity hangs over it all.
It really does. The manipulation of identity, the question of truth, the vulnerability of a child caught in the middle, it's deeply unsettling.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Case. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.